Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Lack of Focus. I am not your host, Ed Horn. I'm Kris, and Ed's not here. We had a couple of scheduling issues. Ed had to stay late at work, and then he's heading away. In fact, he's there now. So I tried to delay as long as I could recording this in the hope that we could get him on the show. And it didn't kind of work out, but I wanted to make sure you guys got some content anyway. So here we are, episode 34, and Solo is the title for this one. No one to throw it over to, so yeah, hi Kris. Hi Ron, yeah, Joy, there we go. That's the obligatory intro part done. Not really anything I wanted to cover too much in the news. Obviously, Wave 5 has dropped now. We've had some points updates. I was really disappointed. I forgot that it was coming out this week, so we didn't do an over-under last time for the cost of the new ships. But a couple of surprises in there. I think I was quite surprised that Sunfac and Ensnur is so low, to be honest. I think I'd personally pay a little bit more for it and still be happy. And we're going to cover that as part of the listener questions towards the end. I did get a request to talk about Sunfac, so sorry, we're going to be on board with what everyone else is doing. And yeah, that's all of the news I really have. I had a couple of ideas for main topics, but again, because this is so last minute, I couldn't quite get the guests in that I wanted to. So I'm going to basically go through a couple of thoughts on different things, nothing too in-depth, because I know that Ed will probably want to chime in on some of the stuff. And that's about it, really. We'll go through that, listener questions, and yeah, there we go. So, moving on to Flight Deck, me and Ed did actually play a game, but I'll probably save that one. It's on the YouTube channel if you want to watch it. And I'm pretty sure we played that after we recorded last time, so we wouldn't have spoken about it. But it's on the YouTube channel. If you want to check out Dice 8 on YouTube, you'll be able to watch that game. And I'll wait until Ed's here to defend himself and we can have a chat about how that went. But I was running Kylo, Quick Draw, and Scorch. And I think that was probably the best I've played that list. I kind of struggle with the engagements with it when I'm on the table. I get a little bit too aggressive and a bit too daring and don't kind of play it properly. But I find when I play on Vassal, I'm a lot more patient of a player on the computer for some reason. And yeah, that was that game. I played a couple of others. The only one of note that I wanted to talk about was I grabbed Sunfac on Friday night, and it was pretty late because I've had quite a lot going on at work, which I'll touch on after this. But I think it was like midnight before we started the game, and everyone was like, "No, well, they were all running scum list. No one was flying any of the new stuff." So I was like, okay, well, I'll grab Sunfac if you want to see it. I made the most basic list I could, which is Sunfac with Ensnur, then 6 vultures. I think 4 of them had grappling struts, and one of them was DFS. What's his name? The one that lets you transfer a focus token. Calculate token, obviously not focus, because you can't take it. It is DFS 311, the scouting drone. I took 3 big rocks. No bid, it comes in at exactly 200 points. But I had a feeling Mark was going to run Gurry as his high initiative anyway, so Sunfac didn't need the bid. He took initiative so his initiative 1s could move first, get their actions. And it went relatively badly at the start. He brought 3 big rocks because he had Captain Seavor to fly over them. I took 3 big rocks because I wanted to set up my Roger fortress in the corner. Then I deployed in the opposite corner to joust him, and I was like, oh, why did I do that? I wanted to use my struts. So I was kind of caught in the middle of 2 mindsets of the joust I think was the right decision, but I also wanted to play with grappling struts because I'd never played with them before. So I was kind of trying to shift the swarm across to land on these rocks, and at that point I'd kind of messed it up. So Mark was killing a vulture a turn, and Sunfac was still kind of getting the engagements. He was on the opposite flank. And I think he did more damage to himself in most of the rounds than I managed to, with Deadman switches going off. And he likes playing an untimed game, which I was more than happy with because I knew as long as Sunfac was alive, I probably win the game in the end game. And that's kind of how it turned out. I threw some of his ships around. I managed to Sunfac one of his Deadman Switch Z95s over a rock, which blew up and damaged Guri and Seavor, and stuff like that. Just making sure that I was taking maximum advantage of those tractor beams, and it worked out really well. It was a little bit disappointing for me that I think I played it really badly, and Sunfac was still basically untouched. I had opportunities to get shots on Guri with using the ensnare ability that I passed up for positioning later, but then it's playing against Advanced Sensors Guri, so it never really worked out. So, Sunfac is really good, and we'll cover him more later and talk about why. But he definitely carried that game all on his own. So work for me has been a bit of a nightmare. Had one of the distributors sent us a $4,000 order that I didn't ask for. So I've been trying to sort out with them what's going on with that. Obviously, I could have just refused to take any of it and sent it back, but it's a bit counterproductive when I need some of the stuff, but I've got stock of others. So that's been a bit of a nightmare to deal with because this is the weekend Joe's been working as well. So I've had Evie at home for like 8 days straight with no time to try and get stuff. So I've been working, basically leaving the house at 7 p.m, getting to the store about just before 8, and then working until 2-3 o'clock in the morning, having to get up again to make sure Evie doesn't die and starve and, be a parent. So been a relatively long, arduous week, which hasn't helped with the schedule trying to get stuff recorded. Thursday evening that we planned to do recording, Ed had to stay and work late. Then he's been trying to pack to go away. I think he's actually in San Diego now. So hopefully he's having a good time and can kick back. I know that me and Jill and Evie and the dogs are all going on vacation tomorrow. We're going to drive down to Waterton, which is a nice site. Outdoorsy, take the kayak and get on the lakes and do some walking and stuff like that, and just try and have 3 or 4 days of outdoor barbecues and trying to just relax and kick back. So yeah, it should be a good one. But there you go. That's basically the flight deck. Done some painting and stuff, but I've been terrible doing the Instagram because I've been feeling ill and not really wanting to social media. So yeah, that's about that. Which brings us on to our main topic for today. I was going to cover with Ed, we wanted to make some lists each and then go through like the new ships and how we think Wave 5 is going to affect what we want to bring. But I definitely think that's a topic that will work better with an actual soundboard and for us to bounce ideas off each other and talk about. So I'm not going to do that. Then I was going to have Kris Allen on, and we were going to chat about if X-Wing is actually a good competitive game or not, but Kris can't make it. We were going to try and do it last night, but we were trying to do some crate recording, I think, or something that didn't line up. Then I was going to have Bruno back on, but he can only do tonight or Wednesday. Obviously, I leave tomorrow, so I can't do Wednesday. And I can't do it tonight because I need to actually get it edited and published for Tuesday. So, sad times. You are stuck with me and the topic. Basically, it's going to be a kind of nebulous discussion on why it's actually really easy to be good at X-Wing, but how we sabotage ourselves in the decisions we make, both on the table and in list building. So I'm going to maybe talk at you a little bit, and if this is like horribly droll and dull, I apologise, but there we go. Basically, the fundamentals of X-Wings, obviously it's played in a confined space of 3x3 zone. You've got fixed manoeuvres. You can go in straight lines and change angles. And obviously you can do high-level stuff like bumping to change the grid pattern that you can fly on. But effectively, if you never bump, your ships are all going to move in a defined area and can only occupy defined spaces with the firing arcs. So if you grasp that concept, it makes everything else I'm going to talk about relatively easy to get a hold of, even though we don't have any visual representations in this format. So the key is obviously trying to maximize your dice rolling percentages against your opponents. So if you've got ordnance, you want a longer range engagement, so you can try and double stack those mods in the current state, which is why Luke was really good when the game came out with proton torpedoes being relatively cheap, him being able to take just target lock and having double mods. Everything that can kind of do that has proved pretty strong, like Redline, all of those ships that we've kind of brought down a peg or two with the points changes, and the way the meta's evolved from that. But that's probably a more interesting conversation that the topic should have been, but hey ho, we can always come back to that one. And if you can do that, you're going to have the ability to kind of weigh those odds in your favour, and obviously dice will happen, but if you consistently make sure that you're stacking your mods against your opponents, you're going to win games. And I think I've been quoted as saying that a few times. Obviously, like, modifiers are what win you games. It's no good complaining about rolling 5 focus results when you didn't take a focus action, that kind of thing. And equally, I think if you watch the last couple of games, me and Ed have stopped and spoke about this at the time, like, when you've got multiple modifiers, like he's been flying defenders recently. I think there's one instance where I shoot at him, he's going to take a damage unless he spends a focus or his evade or Palpatine. And so, which one's the correct one to spend? Well, this ship's not going to have a shot, so it can probably spend its focus token or its evade token. It's only modifying one die, but it's modifying a focus result, not a blank result. So, trying to figure it out. And doing all of those different calculations in your head and trying to think about the best way to do it. And those are like the basic fundamentals of how you actually get good at making decisions outside of movement. Once you look at actual moving, you've got to really consider your squad and what you're aiming for and recognizing win conditions. I think Travis from McCrates wrote a pretty decent article. I think I've got it up on the Dice Hate website about analysing your win conditions and figuring out if you're going to be the beatdown or not, of a terminology he used in the article. And it's pretty interesting when you kind of look at your squad. And when you... A good way of looking at it is if you're playing an ace list and you've got a 5-point bid. I can only really talk about the Calgary meta. I'm not going to try and analyse World's meta and stuff like that, especially because some facts just come out, which I think is going to push the bidding war a little bit more again. But a 5-point bid is probably going to guarantee you moving last, we'll say 30% of the time in Calgary. Once you get to the 7-8 points, that percentage goes up. If you're above 12 points in Calgary, you're pretty much going to be moving last or have the option for initiative 99% of the time. And once you realise that we've got that bid, you're bidding for this reason. So if you're flying, for an example, I've been running in my Republic list a Anakin with calibrated laser targeting. So I wanted to try him a little bit more challenging to fly. And that's probably a lie. We'll come back to that point later. But I didn't want to fly the more rugged version. I wanted to try and get better at lining up with bullseyes and stuff like that, to be honest. And he doesn't live and die by that bid as much as you would think. But the way that you play him, if you have that bid, has to really evolve and change. If he's moving last, you can fly him relatively aggressively. You can play for position and then use his double reposition and the fact he's not going to be stressed to get him out of there, because you just understand that this is the starting position of the enemy ship. It can go to one of these, normally 7. 7's a good number when you start trying to break these things down, because they've got 2 or 3 straight maneuvers that make sense. The banks add another 2, because you can generally write off one direction or the other, and then the turns in that direction. So generally there's about 7 positions a ship could occupy to move its arc, and then you're going to have another repositioning from that. So if you're flying something like, Echo is always the worst one to do because of the decloaks, forwards, sideways being the banks. That's 5 starting positions. Then you've still got the 7 positions from that, and then you've got the barrel roll repositions, and that's where it kind of gets more tricky. But when you look at the shape of the arc and where it's going to be, that's where you're trying to not be. So you're looking to not put Anakin in that space. So then you consider, do I need to have a shot with him? Like, does it matter? In the list I've been running, I've been flying it with Tucker, which really benefits from other ships being close to him and shooting a target that he can see, because then he can get extra actions. And is it worth putting Anakin taking a shot so that Tucker can get an action? The answer is always no. It's never worth letting Anakin get shot, so you've got to fly him out and move him away. So whilst you can fly him more aggressively because you can analyse those positions, you get the benefit of hindsight and knowing where the final position is to see if you have to spend all those manoeuvres to get away, or if you can sit there and not get shot from just a barrel roll. If you're flying and don't have that bid, you really have to leverage the rest of your list to try and hunt down the thing that's moving after Anakin and then free him up. So I'll play super defensive. I'll dial in a lot of 5 straights or the 3 banks and the 1 hard to try and sneak around an arc and stuff like that. And whilst you still get a lot of positional advantage with him, because I'm flying the calibrated, he can't just sit and trade with people. It's not like running the 7B where I'm running regen on him as well. You really got to kind of have that knowledge of where you're going to put Anakin's arc. So generally he'll sit wider on the table for a lot longer. He'll kind of do banks to try and bring his arc so that you're hoping to clip the back end of people's ships when they move. So you're putting the arcs where you think they're going to fly past so that you can hopefully catch them in the back end. And if they commit onto Anakin, you want to make sure that the shot he's going to take is going to be a range 3 shot. You want to stack your mods if you can. This is a good time where I'll actually use the purple focus action. And normally I'll do it without a reposition because he's going to have the final say anyway, like my opponent is, sorry. So that's where I'll use a purple evade. Then I'll have an evade and 2 force charges left. I don't need to use the reposition, because even if I barrel roll him, he can still respond to my repositioning with his repositioning, so it's irrelevant. And that's where I'll try to kind of get the advantage there, that he's got those stacked mods, and then if they do turn on him, he's got those options to do the 5 forwards. And in the meantime, I've got Padme, Tucker, and an Arc 170 with 7th Fleet Gunner kind of barreling down the table, trying to put pressure on the list, having their arcs all pointed. And it's a case of whether they want to chase a hammer or like push themselves onto the anvil. And I can fly that kind of list relatively well without initiative. It's just recognizing what changes, and it kind of puts more onus on the anvil than it does on your A split piece. And that's generally my playstyle anyway. I like having those 2 different parts, which is probably why I like Sunfac so much, and we'll get to that. But yeah, hopefully I've not waffled on too much there for that base level concept. But that's where I'm saying it's relatively easy to be good at the game there, because we know that this is where I need to put my arcs for them to fly into. This is where their arcs are going to be for my piece not to fly into. Those are really easy things to recognise once you accept that half of a dial your opponent has is going to be not relevant. If they turn the other way and they can't shoot you anyway, it doesn't matter. Even if you pick wrong, you're not getting shot. So you're trying to cover, and this is where you want to use your range 2 and range 3 band. Not every shot has to be a range 1 target lock focus shot. Getting them into those range 2 and 3 bands is a lot easier. So you just play to put those arcs, or you're casting the net is a good term. You're putting that net out in front of them, and you're going to try and let them just give them a rope to hang themselves. Is the idiom, I suppose. Like, the rocks are here. I'm going to cover off the exits from the rocks, because people tend to like to fly through rocks because it makes them feel good at the game. And I'm the same. Everyone likes feeling like can we get this ship in? I'm barrel roll here and like boost out, and I cleared 3 rocks with that one move. I'm so good. And you cover the exits of the rocks is a good tactic as well, because that's probably where we're going to have to go. And then you end up getting these positions, rolling your dice, and then eventually you win. But if you're rolling more dice with more modifiers, that's going to win you the games. Where in the actual playing of the game, people fall down, and I am the most guilty for this, is thinking about what should happen from positions, and like you get bored, you get adventurous, you want to be able to have those like movie moments in your head. Let me find Vader is a really good example of this. At least once a game, I'll put Vader in a stupid position when I don't need to, just because he should kill something and he should live. But that's a word that you need to look out for. Whenever you hear the word should in your head when you're going through these decision-making processes, it should be setting off a red flag. If something should happen, that's fine, but it doesn't mean it will. And you need to be planning. And the term I use when I'm like talking to other people, and it's pretty crass, but it's like, what choice can you make that will fuck you the least when it goes wrong? And that's a good mindset to have, analysing when you make a choice and it all goes wrong, what is going to negatively affect your plans the least. And for example, the hyperspace I went to in Saskatchewan, I had the option to boost Vader part. I think it was use my afterburners and then barrel roll, and I wouldn't have been shot, but Vader wouldn't have had a shot either. And I felt like I was ahead in the game. I was facing off. It was a damaged B-wing and an undamaged B-wing behind him. So if I kill the B-wing in front of me, it's a range 1 shot, target lock focused. I've got the force as well, so then I'll be taking the range 3 shot from the one behind it, but that'll be fine because I should have my force left. And I rolled my 4 attack dice on Vader. I think I got like 1 hit, which rolled to a crit through advanced targeting computer. Spent a target lock because I needed more hits. Got blanks again. So I'm like, well, okay. That's fine. So the B-Wing evaded the damage. Like, it took like 1 damage or something stupid. Shoots back at range 1. I have to spend my focus, but still take some damage. And then the range 3 shot comes in, and I roll all blanks and Vader's dead. So, yeah, that's fine. I made the wrong choice because I'm like, it's Vader. He can get in there. He can punch really hard. He's going to probably be looking at 2 hits and a crit. A hit and a crit can kill it because it's got 3 hull left. That, you know what I mean? You're making those calculations in your head, and that was a bad call because even though you probably should kill the B-Wing, probably more times. I mean, we can look at it. What's the X-Wing? Yeah, X-Wing probability calculator. So here we go. We'll go through the actual math and like get the gut math on there. Ship ability, advanced targeting computer, and yeah, there we go. Defense die 1 with a focus. So what the chances of doing 3 damage at least is 85% of the time he dies. So yeah, there you go. I should have done 3 damage, maybe. At least 3. Yeah. So there you go. It's pretty it's pretty likely, shall we say. And then even if he doesn't, should Vader die to incoming shots after that? Probably not. Let's have a look at this one. Focusing force. Yeah. Chance of taking 2 damage is like 38%. I don't know if I can just do it all as one, can't I? I'm so bad at doing this. And yeah, there we go. That's easy enough. So the chances of Vader taking 4 damage, which is what I think he needed to kill him, was 11%. So there's an 89% chance that Vader lives if I don't kill him. And you know what I mean? So there you go. I took 2 above 80% chances. I failed both of them. And yeah, that feels unlucky. But ultimately, over the course of a game, you're not rolling enough die to get a perfect distribution. So you can have hot and cold games. And also, it's not actually that many dice rolls to get that. So 80% sounds like a really good odds, but that means that 1 in 5 times that'll happen. The 1 in 5 times that Vader gets shot, he dies. Well, if you let him get shot 5 times in a game from that position, he dies every time. That's not how math works, but I'm pretty sure you get what I'm saying there. When you look at, I'm taking an 80% chance here that it should be fine. 1 in 5 times it's not. And I think that's why fractions are better than probability for your brain accepting it. But that's where you've got to start looking at these choices. If you're playing practice games, don't be scared of just chat your opponent. Can we pause the timer here and go through some choices and look at the calculator, see what you think's going to happen, and compare that to what actually happens, and restart the timer and try and make informed choices. Or another good one, people tend to do the maneuver side of this quite a lot, where it's it's a practice game. Do you mind if I check if this fits? Or where this would be, or if I rolled, would it have done anything? Going back, if you're playing friendly games, the clock's running, but make sure you just ask, can we just pause that and just check back and look at it? And that is infinitely more valuable than just pushing your ships up and jousting down that gutter at the side of a table 50 times. I think hitting that pause button and going through is probably the best advice you can probably take. There's lots of good tips and things, but I think analyzing why you want to make your choice, thinking about what you think will happen, then stopping, finding out what should happen, and then analyzing what did happen. And not letting confirmation bias come in, because so let's say Vader kills the first B-Wing and takes no damage from the second B-Wing. I still think that is a wrong choice, because the potential was that Vader could die needlessly when I'm up in the game anyway, and I can just barrel roll out and not take a shot. 100% of the time I win if I keep doing that choice, whereas after 5 attempts, Vader dies. So, you know what I mean? Confirmation bias is a terrible thing that you need to try and train yourself out of, and it's one of the key things that makes people bad at X-Wing, is succumbing to confirmation bias. So that was talking about choices made during the game. Then we want to look at the other side of this conversation, would be the list building side of it, which I'm getting better at not being guilty of this aspect of being bad at X-Wing, and that is trying to be a snowflake. I love flying stuff that I enjoy flying and things I find fun, but there's also the meta exists for a reason, because that's the stuff that is good, and I'll argue the case for something that's only 5% worse than something else. But again, that's 1 in 20. A 5% difference is a 1 in 20 difference that it will give you a beneficial result that many times, And once you go into that and you add up all of those little choices, it's what would be a good one? So when I was flying the Imperial list, which was Vader, Duchess, Pure Sabak, and Wampa. I still think that's a really good list. I think it's really good fun to fly, but when I compare it to like Travis's list that he was flying in that same kind of match, it was a similar Vader. Still had Pure Sabak. Then he had Vermeil instead of Duchess, and he was running Gideon instead of Wampa. And you end up with a similar kind of style, but you instantly look at like the hit points. You've got a bigger pool of hit points there because you have a Reaper instead of the Striker. So it gives your list a little bit more beef. Vermeil's output is a lot more reliable than you have from Duchess, because at the time you couldn't take Fifth Brother in hyperspace anyway, so you had no soft mods. Whereas in Vermeil is firing at a given initiative value that he shares with Countdown. Yeah, I'd say he was running Countdown as well, not Pure. So, well, yeah, there we go. That's a better way. Whilst my offensive output was slightly higher, probably across the list, his resilience is a lot higher, and that means you can make an extra mistake. You can take a hit here like Countdown. It's a nightmare because of the ruggedness of the ship. So making decisions based on how forgiving your list is going to be, how intensive you have to be on making the correct call 100% of the time, whereas you can't rely on any level of variance with that list, because at some point the dice will fail and your ships will explode. And I think that's a good comparison there. That I was convinced that my list was better than Travis's, but over the course of games, Travis's list will lose less to random variants. So that makes it slightly easier to fly, which probably makes it a better list. If you want to achieve a given level, fly his list, not mine. And getting that as a concept that, like, yeah, this might be another good one would be the Han Jake list that was around for a little bit. The problem with that list wasn't that it was overpowered. It was that the potential for negative player experiences the same as triple Upsilons. But when people tried to play it, it would just die because they wouldn't execute it, because you have a very finite number of resources in the number of ships you have and a number of arcs you can point at things. So the burden of execution is relatively high for that list. And whilst when you execute it, it is going to be extremely powerful and really hard to beat. If you fail at that, it's going to go down really quickly. Something like in the same period, you're looking at a Rebel Beef type of squad with the B-Wings when they were at the lower points cost. The burden of execution is easier on that because you've got more ships with the hit points spread across those ships, but the ability to move some of that damage around if you're playing selfless, that kind of thing. So, lowering the burden of execution by taking more of the efficient ships in the faction that you're looking to fly is a tremendous way of being good at X-Wing. And all you have to do for that is literally go on the... I don't actually use any of these tools myself, so I never really know what they're called. But the list fortress and all the different sites, analyze that and look at what people are flying, look at what lists are making cuts consistently, and look at the ships that are in them. And then you can kind of extrapolate from that information what solid, reliable ships are, and then make that the core of your list. A list, I think, can normally carry one underpowered ship if you're trying to be special. So for me, it tends to be like, let's look at my resistance list that I'm running at the moment. I wanted to try and fly Paul without a bid because I was pretty sure that he didn't need it. So I've got a 79-point Paul with heroic R2 Astromech, spare parts canister, black 1, integrated foils. So you can potentially regen 3 shields. Then I've got Tally with heroic, Willow with Heroic, and a Logistics Division pilot with C-3PO and R2. So the Logistics Division's pretty reliable. It gives you Coordinate, which is kind of wasted in this list, so it's a suboptimal choice for the list that it's in, but I still think it's a solid choice overall. Tally, I think, is a bargain. 37 points for a Heroic Tally for an Initiative 5 A-Wing, but it's going to have a tremendous uptime for the shots you can put out. Willow at 44 points is riding that. That is probably less efficient than he could be now for those points, but I don't know that I would change it. If you want to change him, you could drop him to Greer, and then you can probably afford to give Tally and him advanced optics or something like that to up their offensive power again. So yeah, in this list, I'd probably say Lulo is the weakest because it effectively, if you're trying to use the ability or need to position and get caught, it just explodes. And the Logistics Division pilot can be a weakness because if you don't set it up right, all three of your ships are going to start the turn stressed, which means the Logistics Division doesn't have anything to do other than be its own gun platform. But with 3PO, it's relatively good at that. So again, it kind of works out, but I find that the thing that wins games with that list is my opponent making mistakes, not what I do. So it's if my opponent turns onto Poe but gives me an out, and I'm not saying it's easy to not give Poe an out, but I'll hang Poe out to dry multiple times, and you've got to make sure you do the math and make sure that you can't die. But you want to lose all three shields on Poe so that you can regen them back up whilst they chase them, and then you're just chipping away. And this is a list that wins at time. It doesn't table people. You're giving them hard choices between, that Logistics Division pilot is sat there, and they're going to try and kill that instead of going for Poe, who's going to get away and regen. And it's all about just giving them a target and letting them make incorrect choices. And that's kind of the weakness of the list is also its strength because it has weak pieces that are suboptimal. So I'm gambling on my opponent not being good enough to recognize where the ships can escape to, and then letting them escape, and then having to put themselves in bad positions to catch them and make those points up. So maybe a bad example of what I was just trying to talk about, but I need one of my bad lists. I don't know. I've tried to make better ones. Okay, yeah, this is a good one. This is a good example of a bad list. So I was going for a 4-ship rebel list that wasn't what everyone else was flying. So I kind of went back to what was good in Wave 1. So I wanted Nora and Lieutenant Blunt. Then I put Leia onto Nora because why not? And then I went with Wedge with Crackshot, R4 and servos. And then I went with 10 Num. And 10 Num, I went with 10 Num because I didn't want to run Braylon because everyone runs Braylon. And I've got 10 Num with Selfless, which is 51 points. If we drop him and you can literally just put Braylon in there. And that is a by far better list. Right? It's stupid how much better that is. How well Braylon's ability synergizes with Leia so that you can still do decent moves when you're stressed, still keep stress for rerolls. The fact that you get double mods on offense, whereas in 10 is relying on being able to roll a focus result to spend his stress. And all your opponent has to do is not shoot at him, and you can't roll a focus on defense. If you didn't do one on offense, you're stuck with the stress and they know it. So you get a lot less value out of 10 compared to Braylon. But the list carries him pretty well because it brings Selfless to a table, which can, save your skin a couple of times. Dragging damage off Wedge onto him kind of changes the target priority. But ultimately, I think that Braylon would be a much better choice than 10 Num with Selfless in that list for its offensive output. But it's not that different, and like I said, that's where the a weak point of a list that the list can carry. So if you want to be a little bit special, that's okay. You can probably get away with it. But it's when we start getting into stuff like, well, in fact, this list is probably still a good one to talk about. Is there a better way of distributing those points? And like, if I want to run Leia, do I really need to run Nora? If I want to run Nora, does she have to be in the arc? Would it be better to change Nora into a Y-Wing, drop Blount, and then I could probably get the Phantom in there now? An AP5 with Leia would be probably better value for some coordinating. This is an example of a list that really likes coordinating because it doesn't finish stressed as much. Wedge getting double-modded shots, being able to reposition and still have a focus is pretty strong. So there's lots of options there that I could make this list better if I actually sat down and went through what the current good ships are rather than what I think used to be good and just throwing them together. So there you go. That's kind of why I think it's really easy to be good at X-Wing and why we choose to not be. Like you make the game harder for yourself with the choices you make that I really don't think you need to. I think you can make your life easier. And it might be boring, it might not be the game you're wanting to play. And that's fine, there's nothing at all wrong with that. But equally, it's something that you need to accept. And I've been having that crisis of confidence, maybe a crisis of faith might be a better way to put it, that I've been going through it the last year when we wanted to restart this podcast and start doing stuff. I didn't really want to do a competitive-based talk because I knew that being a new dad and having very little disposable income of my own coming in, that I can't really travel to big events. I was going to be talking about the game in an aspect that I didn't feel comfortable with. Whereas in the way we do it now, I feel a lot better that I'll give the best analysis for you I can, but I'm not going to tell you exactly what I think you need to be doing all the time. You play your game, and all you need to do is, like I have done now, is you kind of ground yourself in your expectations that I want to play X-Wing that is fun and I enjoy. And if I go to a tournament, I can enjoy playing my squad, regardless of what my opponent is playing. Don't let it be a negative play experience. You go in and you accept that this game is going to be an uphill battle. But I'm going to set my own goals, like if you're flying against Sunfac or an Anakin kind of list, I'm going to kill the rest of Anakin, see if I can preserve enough points to win that way, and try and make Anakin come and fight. If he doesn't, he might lose. But it's all about, I suppose this is the other key to advice now. And I started doing this to people just because I'm a horrible person. When I've been walking around doing at game night, we'll be playing games, and I'll look at a game state, I'll work out who I think's winning, and then I'll what's the point spread, who's winning, and they'll not know. And it's like, well, we can work it out, and that's another good thing you need to get into a habit of learning, especially the way the competitive version of the game is moving. Understanding your points distribution and your opponent's points distribution is stupendously important now. It's something that you can't get away with not knowing and not understanding, because you hear it all the time. It's like, oh, I lost by 3 points. It was a really good close game. And your opponent will know that. And the secret is that the game was never close. The end result was close. And again, it's that confirmation bias. If they've got 100-point Anakin and they've already killed like 103 points of your list, and they've got a bid as well, that game isn't close. You can have your 3 ships all at half points trying to cast that net on Anakin, and he took a range 3 shot here, and It didn't take damage or any. He regened it next turn, and then it took me a couple more turns to catch him again, and it took a damage there. But that game isn't actually close, and you need to be able to think about that before the game starts. If I let this game state establish, I've already lost, and I don't know that. I feel like it's an overwhelming amount of advice to try and take on board. It's 3 different things we're talking about, which I probably did in a bad order. It should have been like list building first, then game choices, and like not being scared to pause the game in a friendly game to figure out what should happen and understanding what those numbers mean and how the dice variance and the bell curve will actually make that breakout. And then understanding the game state as well. So, hopefully that wasn't too boring of just me talking at you. We'll probably try and revisit this when we do have Ed as well. I think hopefully we'll have Sean and Chad back soon, and we can get it from a few different angles about how different people understand and make those choices. But equally, I think it's not too bad me just getting on the soapbox to lay out what those things are. And ultimately, I'm not going to tell you what the correct choices are. I think it's for you to make those decisions yourself and understand what the consequence of that is going to be. If you don't want to make that perfect list, that's fine. Don't make the one you're going to enjoy, and enjoy it because that's okay. I'm not here to tell you that having fun playing X-Wing is wrong. Exactly the opposite. It's just making sure that your fun isn't tied to dominating your local meta. So, there we go. That was a long, rambly main topic. This is hard when it's just me. I think I've been talking for maybe like 40 minutes now. Should have brought a drink upstairs. Or downstairs. I'm in the basement. You can see if you're watching the video. Okay, so then we had a post on Facebook. I did ask for some listener questions, and I had a pretty good response, so we'll go through them. Ed says, "Why is Kris so amazing? Like the best producer and friend a guy could have." And it's like, well, I'm not Ed. I'm a horrible person. I hang you out to dry and blame all of this on you. It's your fault that the listeners are getting a terrible show of just me talking. So there you go. Then we had Sunfac discuss. I don't want to go too deep on Sunfac just because I think that there is a lot to. There's going to be a lot of other people talking about him. I think, for me personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with the fact that this is going to be a Sunfac meta, and then come January, chances are he's probably going to get pointed out of the game or to a point where it's very difficult to make him work in a list. The fact that he doesn't have afterburners is a godsend. If you look at the quick build stuff and play a quick build event, Sunfac is like probably one of the best pieces available for quick build now. I think he's 3 threat, and it's stupid good. Just afterburners and a shield upgrade on him, and Predator and Ensnare are just silly good. But he likes moving last. If he's not moving last, it does take a lot of the power out of him. Why I say I think there's going to be a new spate of bid war getting pushed the boundaries if Sunfac's actually going to be a thing. The thing to remember is that he moves in straight lines, or obviously he can bank, but he can't do a bank boost because he only has tractor beams. It's straight forwards or sideways. He can't rotate to a rear, and he can only barrel roll. He can only tractor himself if he can rotate the arc. So you need to put yourselves in positions that he has to roll. You want to go to where his mobile arc is, as counterintuitive as that can be. If you're flying lower initiative, you want to go to where his arc currently is. And he will probably still be able to get a maneuver that'll get him something, unless you can get in that. If it's on the right-hand side, you want to be coming into him at the rear right-hand quadrant, because then he can't rotate to a rear, he can't stay to a right. So then he's just concentrating on trying to either arc dodge you or pull distance. what you can't do is like sit and trade with him, because you won't be trading with him. He'll barrel roll you so you don't have a shot and then put 5 dice into you. And yeah, he's good. Don't sit in the asteroid field against him. He can fly over a rock and then move your key piece so that it's on a rock, because he doesn't have to execute a maneuver. He likes knife fighting quite a lot because he can try and bump into things and still do his stuff. But ultimately, his dial's good, but he's relatively predictable once he starts getting in there. The best advice I can give is probably try and focus on him early if you get the chance, but don't get drawn into the Fortress Roger and fight those, because if you let him get position, he will just rip you apart and put you in bad positions. Then he does follow up, because I did ask him if he wanted me to definitely talk about Sunfac, because I can go on for a while about him. And he does say, okay, to rephrase it, will the Nantex other than Sunfac impact the game? So Nantex that aren't Sunfac, I actually think are still really good. I think there's a lot of different things you can try to do with them, but until we deal with Sunfac, I don't think that there's going to be an impact immediately. I would expect Nantex to come to a thaw around about February time. After a January points update, we'll have a couple more things out, and then people will look back and see where the power of a Nantex is after Sunfac, because Sun is head and shoulders above the rest of them at the moment, and that's why we're not going to really see anything else. He does have a question for Ed, but I can't really comment on that. I'll leave Ed to decide if he wants to have a Colt Steelers bet. Kris Chico Brown. People want to use Snapshot and Foresight as in the regular engagement attack. He hates these cards, and how do I feel about it? I don't like the cards, but not for that reason. I think the limit of 1 bonus attack around does a lot to try to curb them a little bit, but probably not enough. I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with Snapshot and Foresight being usable in the engagement phase, because by the rules they currently are, there's nothing that stops it. There's no cost involved with using these special weapon attacks, so that you can just choose to activate them as part of your target selection in the engagement phase. Obviously, Snapshot, there is never an instance where it is worth choosing to use Snapshot in your regular engagement, unless you have a turret attack, so you wouldn't normally have a turret in the range 2 band. But that's super niche. If you wanted to put Snapshot on hand, so you have that, okay. I suppose it's another little buff, if any of them. I don't know, do any of the K-Wings have EPTs? No. No, so K-Wings can't take it. Hawk, maybe, but Moldy Crow's better. Yeah, I'm not going to go through them all, it's pointless, but yeah, I don't know that Snapshot is problematic in any way, shape, or form if people want to use that as their engagement. I sat down and went through it when I was chatting with Paul LaRue and some of the Edmonton guys on Facebook. There is a case for Foresight being beneficial over a different type of attack. Right, because I was assuming we're looking at it with Jedi. So you've got the option for Calibrated or 7B rather than Foresight as an attack. Because I don't think, even with Foresight, I don't think running the chassis with neither of those upgrades, I think, is the wrong choice. So I think when you're looking specifically at Jedi, Foresight is good, but it's only beneficial using Foresight over any of the other attacks if you have no mods left and they're at range 3. If they're at range 2, Sorry. Yeah, I'd have to try and find the post, but it's a really edge case of if you've got no mods left, use it because you get a free mod. But when you have any form of mod, it's always a wrong choice to use Foresight. So, like, I think you could probably bump Foresight up a few points to kind of account for that, but it does give them an extra free modded shot in the engagement phase. So, I mean, it could probably cost 8 points rather than 4. So, yeah, Foresight might be a little bit good, but I'm not really worried about it. I don't. And maybe the game will prove me wrong. Maybe someone will run. What would it be? Like Inquisitors would be a good one for Foresight. Probably, it's relatively cheap. They're a cheap chassis in the first place. They don't have access to any of the mods that the Jedi do. So having it on them could be pretty good. I'll have to sit down and look at it. Well, yeah, there you go. I understand why people hate it, but I until I see it dominating, I'm not convinced. I think your opponent has agency in the Foresight case. Snapshot, the problems are the feel of Snapshot, and I was chatting with people the other day, and they were running Fenro and 4 mining guilds, I think, all with Snapshot, and then Fen with Fearless. And that's a good like Ambo and Hammer kind of list that I probably will steal and try. I just need more mining guild ties, or maybe some Zeds might do a job okay. But I think Snapshot can put a big barrier of range 2 death up, but I think it'll go a little bit of a way towards reining in the ace play, but I don't know. I think that the meta will adapt around it. Like you can like snapshot away at my rebel beef list, whatever. I'll take a unmodified shot on my shields and then shoot you back. You probably die. Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one to be honest. I'm not happy that they're back in the game. I'll be honest with that. I would rather we didn't have these cards in the game at all. But they're here, so as long as they're point costed appropriately, I have no real issue. I think 7 points for Snapshot is okay. Foresight, I think, could come up a little bit, but it's limited by being a force power to what can take it. And the things that I would want force powers on tend to compete relatively well with Foresight. But there's specific instances where I think it could turn out to be problematic, being like the TIE Advanced prototype being one of them. And then, yeah, I'm still not convinced that it's the right way to go with Jedi, but I'm sure someone will prove me wrong. Next, due to a blues on the Republic Y-Wing, would you consider R4 mandatory, in your opinion? What alternate astromech would provide similar value? I would only consider R4 mandatory if you're running one of the aces, and you want to be able to use that positional play for them. If you're looking to just joust people with like generic Republic Y-Wings, I think you can get away with just those blues. And I either don't spend points on them so you have more points to make them better jousters, or I don't know. Yeah. So if I was going to run if I was going to run Anakin in a Y-Wing, I would put R4 on him. But I'm not going to run Anakin in a Y-Wing, so I'm not going to put R4 on him. Maybe Oddball. I'm going to have to check. I hate Oddball so much. So bad. Live points checking stuff now. Let's see. Oddball at 44 points. Give him the Astromech. R4, where are you? There we go. 2 points for R4, 46. I believe dorsals now legal. And then can you could be a cheaper way to get 7th Fleet Gunner. But yeah, we're probably looking at veteran turret gunner, aren't we? If we're being honest, 57 points for a veteran turret gunner. And what about? No, doesn't look good. Maybe expert handling. So 59 points for that doesn't feel good. That gets you all of your ones and twos being blue, which is an extra 6 blue maneuvers. Pretty good. And it gives you a white barrel roll, which is pretty good. It makes him almost into an ace. He gets a double tap. Yeah, I could see that. I could see Oddball being okay in that instance. 59 points is still pretty high though, so maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe it's too much. Switch out for Ion and get rid of expert handling. 51 points for Oddball, and you're literally just paying for a pilot skill. The initiative value, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that I would want to fly the Y-Wing in that way, if that makes sense. I suppose it does let you reload stuff, so maybe if you look at some form of Ordnance Y-Wings with pulling off disarm tokens, could be interesting. Maybe Battle Meditation Plo Koon is also going to pull off people's we disable for reloading ordnance. So that could work out pretty well. Then we had one from Peter. If I'm not too late, no, you are not, Peter. What are your views on the new multiplayer missions? This was an interesting one. I did read this question earlier, and I thought about it, and I'm one of a few people I know anyway who actually played some of the missions from the larger ship expansions in first edition. I thought were really fun, and it's basically the same thing in this. That I think they're going to be really good fun. I think that they're going to find a home a little bit easier than the other missions did because of the way they're being marketed, that it is a multiplayer expansion. So people will buy this and it will only have that content, so you're more likely to play that content. Competitive wise, I don't think it'll make any impact. I don't think they're going to be running mission based tournaments. It'd be interesting to see exactly what comes out, but yeah, I'm excited for more fun stuff and more what it allows in the fact that they're doing these kind of card packs and different ways of modifying their own game. That excites me more than maybe the missions themselves because it's not something that's new to me, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think it's a good thing and I'm happy about it. Okay, and then finally, we did have a message from Ron Brannan, and he asked if we can review the action step sequence with cards like Afterburners, as he had an opponent who was trying to spend Vader's Force after doing Afterburners, even though he was stressed. So, basically, just a rules explanation, and I'll try and keep it relatively brief so that it's not overly boring. I know that I've droned on for quite a while already, of which I am sorry. So we want to go through how it works and like the action step for stuff like this. So the maneuver step, first of all, is broken down into 2 steps. You have maneuvering the ship and then the check difficulty step. Those 2 steps must be completed before you move on to the perform action step. So, yeah, because I suppose it's worth laying out that the perform action step now is actually a separate part of activating the ship. It's not part of executing the maneuver. It's not part of a maneuver step. So during a ship's activation, you perform a maneuver, which is maneuver of the ship and check the difficulty of the maneuver. And then you get a perform action step, which you skip if you are if you like run over a rock, stuff like that, that makes you skip it. Then where were we? I wanted to check difficulty as well. Difficulty, here we go. So this is on page 10. So checking the difficulty step of the execute maneuver. If a maneuver is red, the ship gains 1 stress token. If a maneuver is blue, the ship removes a stress token or a strain. The stress token ship cannot, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so the check difficulty step is basically where we add or remove stress or remove strain as well. So both those steps are completed when you execute a maneuver. Right now, there's 2 ways of executing a maneuver. One of them is executing a maneuver, and the other one is fully executing a maneuver. Afterburner specifically references fully executing a maneuver, which means that if your ship bumped and therefore didn't reach the end of its maneuver template, that you don't fully execute it, so afterburners can't trigger. Then you go back and read the rest of afterburners. So we fully execute a maneuver, and it was speed 3 to 5, so that lets us trigger it. You may spend 1 charge to perform a boost action, even while stressed. So that is what gets around the requirement of stress stopping actions. So let's scroll up to the action section to make sure that I'm phrasing this correctly by the rules. Actions. Ships can perform actions. Blah, blah, blah. So the first bullet point on page 3 of the action step is a ship cannot perform actions while stressed. So it still gets a perform action step or whatever, but what lets you get around that to perform the afterburner boost is that it states on the card that you can do it even while stressed. Vader's ability lets you do a following action after you perform an action. Obviously that doesn't tear off, it doesn't carry through the ability to do it even while stressed, because that's specific to the afterburner's boost. So that's why that doesn't work. But there's lots of different intricacies when you get into a minutiae of those abilities. For example, a good one would be if Vader flies over a rock. The rock is what instructs you to skip a perform action step. So if you then afterburners, you're still doing it before the perform action step because it's after executing a maneuver, but before that step. So you can then boost, then you can trigger Vader and get multiple actions and then still skip your perform action step. It's why people really like Nien Num with Pattern Analyzer to do a red move, hand off the stress, because all of that happens before a perform action step. It's awkward in that the terminology is awfully similar and the fully execute thing compared to execute isn't as clear as it could be for people who are either A, carrying over baggage from first edition and haven't actually sat and read the new rules properly and tried to fundamentally understand what these changes mean, or from just people who have been taught the game verbally and haven't sat down and read through the entire rulebook. Hopefully that is kind of what you're looking for, Ron. It's a hard one to kind of lay out without some visual components, so we'll see. I kind of keep intending to do either video format or written format of a monthly rules update thing for the YouTube channel, but I have a website and hosting it on the Facebook page as well, but I keep putting it off and not making the time to do it because there's so many other things to get done. But yeah, there we go. That's about that. That's all the questions we had. Basically brings us to closing out the show. Thank you for anyone who makes it to this part. It's been pretty easy for me because I just got to talk about X-Wing and had no one to tell me I'm wrong and question my vast superior knowledge. So yeah, I do apologise if this was a bit of a boring one. We'll try and get some extra episodes done this month once Ed and everyone's back. I will endeavour to try and get some content made when we get back from our vacation this week, and hopefully I'll try and get some guests together and throw some random shows your way just to try and make up for it. Thanks to all the Patreons who are supporting us. I have the the first 60 or so Roger tokens. So they will start getting assigned to people for the next batch that gets mailed out, which I think I said was probably going to be November time. So, we have 3 sets of the Lack of Target Lock tokens, and then a good chunk of Roger tokens to be able to send out to people. So, thanks to everyone there, and make sure if you do sign up to a Patreon, you're selecting an appropriate reward. We do it by episode, so if you'd like to set a monthly cap, you can just do that on your Patreon settings, and it is Lack of Focus Lack of Focus on Patreon. You can find us. We're the only people there. And thanks again to all you guys for the support. It means a lot. Helps me out tremendously with being able to cover the costs of all of the hosting and editing software and stuff. You can find us on Facebook at the Lack of Focus page there. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Probably Instagram better than Twitter because I've just stopped using Twitter. It mind-numbingly political and bores me. So, you can do that. Or shoot us an email, all the good stuff. Watch the YouTube channel, and hopefully I've not droned on too much and that you find it somewhat entertaining. Again, sorry we couldn't do a better show this time around, just the way it worked out with the schedules. I figured this was better than you not getting any show. But there you go, episode 34, solo. And as always, folks, fly casual.
Thank you once again for joining the Lack of Focus X-Wing podcast. Check out Dice Hate Productions for all of the latest episodes, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you again next episode.